Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is the first video that I filmed in quite a lot of months. Quite frankly, I've just not had the time. I've not known what to film. My flat has been very noisy. I've got my earbuds in at the moment because my neighbours are really loud. I'm trying to sort it out and there's construction going on. But I thought that I would make a video. This is going to be the first part of a series of 3, I think, most likely, because I got a very exciting phone call the other day while I was at work. I nearly didn't answer, from the assessment centre that do the autism assessments in my local area, asking me if I wanted to book in my assessment. And immediately I was like, ugh, they're going to be like, yeah, the next appointment's April next year. But she was actually like, no, we've got appointments next week. And this was last week. It's now Monday. I have my first assessment this Wednesday coming up. And I thought I would make a series on my journey getting my autism diagnosis. And this first part is going to be about what has happened from when I first got my referral, or even before that, up until now. So basically what happens before you have your assessment from first going to get a referral. I thought it would be something that would be helpful because they're very secretive about autism assessments, which can be very, very difficult for autistic people to go into something having no idea what it's going to be, having no control over it, not being able to kind of plan ahead. And I do think they do that on purpose, but I still think it should be kind of a little bit more transparent. So I'm going to make this series. The first part is going to be from, up until now. So yeah, here we go. So I first thought that I was autistic, I want to say in 2019. I went to London with 2 of my friends, and it kind of solidified a lot of things that I'd already been thinking about myself. I've always felt like I processed the world and everything completely different to the people around me. And when I went to London, it's a very big city. It was kind of something that I'd never really experienced before, because when I travelled before previously, that's not how it had been. And when it came to kind of planning what we were doing while we were down there, all of the different sounds, basically just everything, I kind of just felt like it was different. I had to be in control of timings. I sometimes would have to walk around with my fingers in my ears, and I just found it so chaotic, and I didn't necessarily understand how anybody lived like that, because my only experience living in a city is Newcastle, and I love it because it's very condensed. It all makes sense. I've lived here my entire life, or at least been in the city my entire life, experiencing it. And I don't know, it just made me realise that it's not that it made me realise things, it condensed everything that I'd already struggled with into one environment. And it really made me sit back and go, okay. And the entire time, me and my friends were joking about how the trip had made me realise I was autistic, and we were kind of making jokes about it. And I don't think they realised at the time that actually I was being serious when I was saying, whoa, I think I'm autistic. And this was summer 2019. It just put everything into perspective for me. And I kind of didn't think about it that much. I went back to uni for my second year in that September. And I was thinking about it, but I was just so busy that I didn't bother. I was just so rammed with work in different societies because I was directing a play at uni at that point, and involved in different things. And then lockdown hit. And that was when I feel like a lot of people were like, oh, I have time now to sit and think about myself. I have time to do all of these things that I've been putting off, and I've got no excuse now because I'm locked at home, and I'd done research before, but it really gave me the time to sit there and be like, okay, how is it that I'm feeling? I've basically got a note on my notes that like takes forever to scroll down, because it was just me whenever I felt like I was noticing something that could be related, I'd note it down. And that's the best advice I can give anybody if they think that they're autistic and they kind of want to gather information about it, is don't just research traits and be like, I do that. Keep a mental note in your head of when you notice it in real life. Contextualize those traits, you know, pop them into, when you say you've got sensory issues, don't just say that. Notice when your sensory issues are bothering you and take note of it, because it helps contextualize things. And it makes things make more sense. It applies to you rather than just autism as a general thing. And one morning I woke up really early, and I was just like, you know what, I'm going to call the doctors today. And my doctors have a system where you don't get an appointment, or you can't get through unless you call like at 8 a.m. on the dot. And because I was up, I was like, okay, today's the day, I'm going to do it. I called up. I was like, I would like to get put forward for an autism diagnosis. The nurse kind of did a general, they must have some kind of system where they do basic questions first before they say yes to kind of taking you on board, or at least allowing you to follow the set process that came afterwards. And she was like, okay, I'll pop you in for a further follow-up appointment before we put you through to the referral team. And then I had a phone call off my doctor, who's like, he like runs the practice or something, which was more in depth. It was kind of, why do you think you're autistic? Why do you want a diagnosis? Basic questions of kind of, tell me what you have noticed in yourself, and if it ticks enough boxes, I'll put you through to a referral. And I wish I could give more information about that, but it was a long time ago, and it wasn't in person, it was over the phone. So I have no idea what system they used. I've got no idea what made them go, yeah, okay, this person's ticked that many boxes, because it was kind of just me talking at them. But at the end of the phone call, my doctor said, yeah, I'm going to send you off to a referral. I'll send your referral off to the people that do assessments, and they will get in touch with you and do preliminary assessments, because that wasn't it. That's not, right, you're on the wait list. That's, I'm sending you to another team that will assess whether they think you're likely to get a diagnosis based off what you're saying. So that wasn't my referral. That was just another point of another person that was gonna, you know, let me talk at them and answer questions. And in the UK at least, it's up to your local health authority, like, that does your assessments. So I live in like my house, my postcode officially is registered in Durham, so I am being assessed by that local authority, but I live in Newcastle and I've not registered with that local GP, because it would change my official address and I'd have to go on the wait list in Newcastle, which would put me at the bottom. And that's why sometimes when you see somebody that goes on the wait list at one time, but somebody goes on the wait list 6 months later in a different county, and they get assessed first and get their diagnosis before that person, it's because the systems are different. That's how somebody explained it to me anyway. So I was put on a wait list to be called about a referral first from my local healthcare people. And that was a much longer phone call. That was like an hour, I want to say. And this was a good couple of weeks after I'd spoke to my doctors. And this was kind of, the first question she asked me, I remember, really stumped me, because I hate vague questions. It was just kind of like, okay, list to me all the reasons why you think you're autistic. And I was just like, I mean, I have them all written down, but when you say list, you know, I've got countless examples. This was like a long note. So I kind of just blurted things at her, which she came back to throughout the phone call. And it was asking very vague questions and very kind of stereotyped questions of, do you have sensory issues? Kind of, how were you in school? Can you make eye contact? What were you like as a child? Can you give an example of when like you see patterns in things? Have you got any other, I think she said disorders, that might relate to this? Very broad kind of, sometimes were specific, sometimes just weren't, and kind of just allowed me to talk about that. And at the end of the conversation, she was like, yep, okay, I'm going to put you forward for a referral. And at that point, she was like, because of COVID, because this was like peak COVID times, it was April 2020, you could be waiting 2 to 5 years. And I was like, 2 to 5? I got told 1 to 2 when I initially was looking into it. And she said, you will get a phone call from somebody to do a health check. And at that point I was like, what the hell does that mean? Like, what is a health check? And I didn't get that phone call until probably, I want to say June, because I remember I got it while I was out and about, and it was when rules in 2020 had sort of relaxed over summer, because I was out and about, and I there was no restrictions in shops and things. And I was nervous because I was like, what on earth is a health like phone call? What on earth is that? And it was more a well-being check. It was kind of to check that I was coping. It was kind of like a, if you've been through any trauma, please let us know if this has impacted you. And I was like stood on the side of a road, I think I was in Durham at the time, like just trauma dumping on this man on the phone. It was really awkward. He was like, is this a good time to be talking? And I was like, I'm not letting you hang up because I've been waiting months for this phone call. And it was more kind of like, is there anything we can do for you while you're waiting? And then at that point he told me that I would get preliminary assessments or checkup phone calls every 6 months, which I did get. So up from June 2020 up until now, I was getting phone calls every 6 months from the assessment centre, or the centre that does the assessments. Kind of just checking in on me, asking how I was, and I would never know what to say on these phone calls. I'd just be like, yes, do you know when my assessment's going to be? Because I've been waiting a long time. And they'd just be like, yeah, it is what it is. There's nothing we can tell you. You're just gonna have to wait. And I remember getting a letter through the door, probably, I want to say around August time of 2021. Because again, it was when rules had relaxed. I kind of like match up how this time has gone based off kind of COVID rules. I feel like a lot of people might do that for the past couple of years. And I remember it was August because it was summer. There weren't many rules in place because I remember I was going to meet one of my friends or something. And I got a letter through the door, and it was from like NHS, and I was like, oh, okay, this is probably something to do with my assessment. And I opened it up, and it was just this tiny little like paragraph at the top that was like, it just said something like date, time, assessment, and it had a date and a time, and it was to go into the building that does the assessments in my local area. And I was thinking, oh God, like I've never been in before, they've only ever just called me, is this my assessment? And it was like the week after or something, and I thought, oh no, I feel like they would definitely give me more warning, but it had no information on it. It just literally said, please arrive at this appointment at least 5 minutes early. If this appointment time doesn't work for you, give us a call. It just said nothing, but it was definitely from the autism assessment team. And I thought, you know, this is chaos. If this is how they're running autism assessments, where they're inviting people in who are most likely autistic and giving them no information, like what the hell? So I gave them a call, and I was like, yeah, I've had a letter through the door. And they thought I was calling to rearrange, and I was like, no, I want you to tell me what's going on. I'm not walking into a building and having no idea what's going on, and if it's my assessment, I want to be prepared. And they were like, no, it's not. And I was like, right, so if it's not my assessment, then what is it? And they were like, oh, because there's no COVID rules in place anymore, your 6-month appointments are now in person. And I was like, right, is there any way you could maybe put that on the letter when you're sending it out, because you made me panic? And she was just like, well, if your appointment time is fine, then let's just leave it, I'm really busy. And I was just like, wow, okay, fairs. So I went to this appointment, and it was more or less like, I was so nervous because I'd never seen anybody in person, and I was just like, what if they meet me, they think I'm not autistic by looking at me, and then just take me off the wait list. And I went in, and I was sat there, they called me in, I must have sat on the chair for like 30 seconds, and they were like, okay, you can go. And I was just like, right, surely it's easier and safer for you to just keep these appointments over phone, because there was no point in me being there. I think they said, how are you doing? I was like, oh, I'm fine. At this point, I just finished my degree. And they were like, so how did you manage that? How did you cope? And I was like, well, I struggled. And she was like, well, do you need any help from us? And I was like, probably not. Like, I'm fairly self-sufficient. I feel like I don't really know what I'm asking for, because I wasn't prepared coming in. And she was just like, oh, right, okay, then you can go. And I was like, oh, okay. And not long after that, I got a phone call from them. It was probably within the same month, being like, hi, this is your 6-month checkup phone call. And I was like, but I came in like a couple of weeks ago, why are you calling me again? They hadn't noted on the system that I've been in, and I was just like, this is chaos. And I remember the woman saying to me, so what have you been up to recently? And I was like, oh, I've just graduated. And she was like, oh, so you actually managed to get a degree? And there was just something about her tone of voice that was like, I could tell that she was thinking, how is this person autistic if they'd managed to get themselves a degree? Or something like, I could just tell that she was really confused at the fact that me, being on the waitlist for autism, had managed to get a degree. And she asked what it was in, and I was like, oh, I did it in literature. And she was like, oh, that must have been really difficult then. And I was like, yeah, like I actually did really struggle, because I don't learn the way that other people learn, and it was hard to kind of express this. And it was just the way that she said things to me just made me feel like she just really didn't believe anything that I was saying, and it really made me panic, because I was like, if this is the kind of person that's going to be doing my assessments, you know, I don't feel like anybody's going to see me as valid, because they think that because I've achieved something that I can't be autistic, which is just so messed up. But on the 6-month phone call that I got after that, I mentioned it to them, and they were like, oh no, she was just a receptionist, like she won't be doing any kind of assessments. And I just thought, how have you got somebody working for you who's calling all of these people who are trying to get an autism diagnosis and other things, who has opinions like that, who's willing to speak to people like that? Because it really scared me. And yeah, they apologised, but I don't know, like, it's such a stressful thing to deal with, because especially when you're an adult, it's you that's put yourself forward for an assessment, because often you feel like they view autistic people as being completely incapable. So how have you managed to come to this conclusion about yourself? Yeah, very stressful. But it's now almost February 2022. I have my first assessment on Wednesday at 1:30. It's over Zoom, which I'm not massively happy about, because I mean, I don't understand how they're gonna really get a feel for who I am over Zoom. I get really distracted by the fact that I know I'm on camera. I feel perceived. I feel like I'm just gonna mask the entire time. But we'll see how it goes. They said it could take between 2 to 3 hours, which is insane. And they've sent me like, it's like this online system that they use to log your appointments and things. I think it's called patient clinic access, I don't know, patient access or something. And they sent me a load of questionnaires to do, which were like, you could literally write 5,000 words on each question, and it was questions like, what do you want your doctor to know about you? What do you struggle with most daily? How do you feel about yourself in general? Have you got any other health problems? How would you describe your childhood? Things like that. Describe a time in your life where you struggled, which will help us understand how you struggle. And then it had something like example at school, at work, at home, etc. So I kind of discussed some of the struggles that I had at work, because I really wanted them to understand that yes, I might have a job, yes, I might live at home, yes, I might live alone, yes, I might have my own flat, and I may appear to be quite self-sufficient. I struggle. Like as an adult trying to navigate adult life, I struggle. And then there was other questions that kind of just didn't apply. Things like, do you have any medical problems and stuff? So I filled all that in, and then they sent me this sheet, and they were like, this is how the first appointment's going to be ran. And it was like things you need, and it's this list of random, it's like 11 items, things like a pencil, a piece of string, a paper clip. And it was like, pick 7 of these items to put in a clear bag or box. You're going to need them. Which I think is going to be that thing where they're like, you need to tell a story, or like create some kind of sequence of these and tell us why. I don't know. But yeah. And then she also said on the phone that I'll have a second assessment, which will most likely be in summertime, where I'll need to bring a close family member or friend along who had involvement with me in my childhood, who will be able to discuss what I was like as a child. And I haven't decided yet who I want that to be, because my parents aren't together, so their kind of experience of me from when I was younger, from like a certain point in my life, is completely separate, because they didn't live together. The time that we spent together was separate. So I don't know who has a better feel for kind of the things that impacted me. So I haven't decided who that's going to be yet. They said you can even have a friend if they've been in your life for quite a while. But again, I feel like I'm a different person with every person in my life because of masking. So I haven't decided about that yet. But yeah, I will be doing a video about each of those things. So hopefully within the next couple of weeks, I will upload another video about what the first assessment was like, and I will update everybody. I might even do like a Q&A to do that video, to maybe structure it a little bit better. This one was more like a story. I might do that one where I tell it but also answer people's questions. And hopefully that will give people a little bit of clarity, people who might be scared about their assessment or just want a little bit more knowledge about it. But yeah, that is my autism assessment journey, from the point of realising I was autistic to getting my first assessment. I hope this has been helpful. Let me know if you have any questions about my next video after I've had my first assessment. But yeah, fingers crossed to me, and thank you very much. Thank you very much for watching.